Thank you. The question is the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Chifley.
Thanks, Acting Deputy Speaker. So here's my Gough Whitlam story. I'm in my 20s and I'm a newish industrial officer at my old union, the Communications, Electrical and Plumbing Union, the Postal and Telecommunications branch, and a big part of the job was taking phone calls, and lots of them. And one particular day we'd been deluged by calls, and from recollection there was a stuff-up in the processing of an allowance, so we had a lot of uptight members ringing through, and they were wanting to see what the union could do. And I'd finished this string of calls, and I decided I'd just sneak out for a cup of coffee. And the loudspeaker pipes up on the phone, and it's reception telling me I've got another call. And I'm at the door of my office, and I lean in, and I say, "Can I just go and grab this cup of coffee?" And reception says, "You're going to want to take this call." And I said, "Look, I'll be 5 minutes. I'm pleading. I'll be 5 minutes. Take a message, and I'll grab this coffee." And they go, "It's Mr. Whitlam's office. Mr. Whitlam wants to talk to you." And at that moment, you would think that the importance would sink in and that I'd respond accordingly. And I turn to reception and I say, "Sure, put the great man through and get me next week's lotto win as well." And so I pick up the phone and I go, "Hello," and there's silence. And then I hear, "Comrade," and it's that voice, unmistakable. And there on the line is a former Prime Minister of Australia ringing through. And he was ringing through because I was the Secretary of the Greenway Federal Electorate Council at that time within the Labor Party, and we had sent him a letter commending him on his strong response for a very disappointing inaugural speech by a former member for Oxley in this place. And he had rung through to express his gratitude. But then he had gone on to do what others had remarked upon. He was quizzing me about my background. Where was I from, my parents were from, and where did my parents raise us, where did we live? And I guess what would you take out of that encounter? Not that Husic's flash at writing correspondence, though I'd be grateful for the compliment, but rather it was his curiosity, it was his interest, and it was his care. It's these personal attributes of the man that so many people cherish and remember. And inasmuch as he had an eye for detail, and we've all heard stories of him indexing and footnoting Hansard, there's something else that people valued, and I wanted to get to that point in a way you wouldn't expect. And I'd ask the House, can you remember the name of the Bart Cummings horse that won the Melbourne Cup in 1974 and 1975? Correct. If there was ever very good work, member for Gippsland, I'll remember to invite you to my next trivia night. If there was ever a horse that was so aptly named for the Whitlam era, it was Think Big. Think Big was the name of the horse in 74 and 75 that won. Now, many people have celebrated his big array of achievements, and it was secured certainly in a compressed time frame. But Gough Whitlam thought big because he had big dreams for the nation. And a big task of transforming and shaking up Australia demanded a big call-up of people, and it was here that he did something special and why he's warmly remembered. He believed, and not just a belief of himself, but importantly he believed in those that in a harder and tougher time did not benefit from the belief of wider society. And if you think about it, he made a place for them all, for our nation's first people, for women, for migrants, for the families starting their lives sitting out way in the suburbs, the communities of our regions. He brought them within the view of public consciousness. And that was the power of the Whitlam legacy. It was his faith in the capabilities of his fellow Australian. Mr Whitlam was brought to life via the stories of my father, the man who tried so hard to peer through the windows of the Blacktown Civic Centre to see a man destined to become Prime Minister when he made the call to the men and women of Australia. And my dad had only just made it to Australia a few years earlier, and Mum followed soon after. And I might have known Gough through those stories, but I actually knew him better because his belief touched our lives. His belief that working-class families deserved access to quality health care, or that kids of working-class parents should be pushed to pursue higher education, prepared for it via good secondary schooling, or in Western Sydney that our homes should be properly sewered. And thanks to Gough, we never had to dance that dance of fear with redbacks in the outhouse. I'm here in part because of that belief that Gough Whitlam had in multicultural Australia. I am standing, and I am so grateful and honoured to be standing on this floor because Gough Whitlam had faith in multicultural Australia, and like I said, he called up into national endeavour people of all backgrounds, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And on his passing, I thought of my dad's generation, or I thought of the generation of Labor Party members out my way who had their belief ignited in the legitimacy of our party sitting on that side of the House, because it's from there we can achieve so much for the people who deserve richer and better lives. Much will be read into Mr Whitlam's style, into his approach and philosophy, but for me, he will always be remembered as a progressive for progress, not a progressive championing the status quo. He recognised that the static imprisoned the people we care for. It restrains Australians from being able to capture opportunity emerging around them. And he reformed and prepared his party, our party, as a vehicle for change for our country. And as much as Mr Whitlam ushered in big change, huge change, he ensured that support was there for the people affected by it. He had a grander plan for Australia. He called up people from the breadth of Australian society to help him bring that vision to life. He made sure his government looked after them on the way through, shielding them from the tougher short-term consequences of that change while awaiting the longer-term improvements that these changes would bring. And that is a lesson for the ages. So thank you for your service and your belief, Vale Edward Gough Whitlam.